Hi guys, it's Professor Fernandez, and I'm doing a quick video, and I'm hoping it is a quick video here on semicolons. The semicolon. Anyone who knows me knows how much I loathe and hate the semicolon. But this is English, and I will teach you to use the semicolon, and then I will teach you why you should never ever use the semicolon. Well, not ever ever, but very rarely should you use the semicolon. So let's get started. I'm gonna do a screen share here. Um, and I'm gonna explain like the 3 reasons, maybe 4 reasons, to actually use a semicolon. Right? So when should you use a semicolon? Well, there's a couple of reasons why. So let me see if I can get my iPad here to work correctly. Uh, maybe not. Oh no. Oh goodness. There it is. Screen sharing. All right. So there's a couple of reasons to use a semicolon. So the first one is kind of pretty easy. You use a semicolon to connect two independent clauses. So you're going to connect two independent clauses. And I think what's probably really kind of confusing here is the word independent clauses. So what that actually means, friends, is that two full sentences. And so that means you have to know what a sentence is. And a sentence literally has a subject plus a verb, because that subject is doing something, and then a direct object to something else, or something else is happening, right? So Sally ran home. This is a full sentence, right? Sally is your subject. Your verb is ran, and where she run to? Home, right? So if you said something like Sally ran, this is also a full sentence. And this is a full sentence because it has a subject and a verb. Subject verb agreement coming at you yet again. So that's why we started with subject verb agreement. So you really want to know if it's a full sentence. So number one, to use a semicolon, you have to connect two independent clauses or full sentences. So if you had a sentence like Sally ran home, it was raining, then you have a complete sentence with Sally ran home. It's a subject here, not a great subject, but it's a subject. Was is a verb. And then what it was doing, raining. So was is one of those things called a helping verb. I don't know if you've actually remember those, but it's a helping verb. So you have this. So this is two complete sentences. Now, should we use a semicolon here? Absolutely, because those sentences actually relate to each other. This is another thing you have to keep in mind when you're connecting two independent clauses, is that they have to relate to each other. So if you had Sally ran home, gorillas raged at Walmart, all of my examples are extreme, by the way, you'll love this. Are these two related? Well, unless I know why she ran home, if it's because of those darn gorillas, then yeah, I would put it in there. But if they're not related, and I don't believe that they are, these are two separate sentences. So I would not connect these with a semicolon. So that's number one. Rule number two. So you use a conjunction or you use a semicolon when you're connecting to like sentences that have a conjunction. So let's say you have, well, actually, let me write the rule for you. You delete the conjunction to use a semicolon. What is a conjunction? If you've ever heard the Conjunction Junction song, and you probably should, because it's kind of awesome, you would know that conjunction is and, but, or, yet, for, nor, or. So there's this thing called fanboys. So fanboys. So that's what that means, right? So that's when you, a second way to use it. So if you had two sentences, right, that are related and they're already put together with a conjunction and a comma, because that's when you will need a comma in front of a conjunction. I like to call them conjunction junctions because it reminds me that I need to remember the song, right? So what you will need to do then is, and I'm going to take the example that I'm seeing in front of me. I saw a magnificent, let's call it a mouse. I saw a magnificent mouse and it was eating cheese. Saw a magnificent mouse and it was eating cheese. So let's look at this particular sentence. I'm going to scroll this up here so we can just look at the sentence. We know that these are two separate sentences because we have a subject and the subject's doing something and then the actual object of what it's talking about, right? Then this particular part of this sentence has an it, subject, not a great subject, but it's a subject. It has a verb, which is a helping verb to the actual big verb, which was eating. And what is it eating? It was eating cheese. Okay? So that tells us that these are two independent clauses, i.e. full sentences. So we know that also that it was put together with this comma and this and. So when you're looking at conjunctions and putting together sentences, right? Putting together two sentences that are full sentences, not a sentence and a fragment, right? You're going to use comma and, but you don't have to. Again, if they're related to each other, you could use a semicolon. So you can say, I saw a magnificent, by the way, this is such a great word, mouse, semicolon, it was eating cheese. There you go. That's how you use a semicolon right there. So 2 rules, just to recap so we know. First rule, it connects 2 independent clauses. Independent clause is another word for sentences. And this is full sentences, not half sentences. I like to call fragments half sentences because they're missing pieces of sentences and they're dependent on other things to make sense. So they're independent clauses, full sentences. And a full sentence will have a subject, a verb, and a direct object. So subject, it's doing something, and additional information to tell you, kind of give you what's going on, right? Then another way you can use a semicolon is to use it to replace a conjunction and a comma. So you already have a sentence, which are really 2 smaller sentences put together with a conjunction and, but, or, and a comma. So you already know that they're full sentences. You just take away the comma and the conjunction and you stick in a semicolon. But you have to make sure that the sentence relates. Okay? So you've got that. So then the second thing that we need to look at here is, or the third thing I should say, the third rule-ish, is semicolons in a list. serial, and I almost capitalized it because we were listening to serial, but serialist. Serial means succession, one after the other. Okay, so let's see. So say you have, I like candy, chips, and soda. So looking at this, it's a good sentence. I is the subject. There's your verb. And what do you like? Candy, chips, and sauce, and chips and soda, right? So you have your direct object there. So it's a full sentence. Yay! Okay, so you don't see any semicolons, right? Right. Because if you're going to do a list, more than likely you're going to use commas. And you're going to put a comma after everything you're listing in a sentence. But if you have something that it's already using a comma, and you're going to separate it from another thing that's already using a comma, then you use the semicolon. It's kind of tricky to explain, but once you see it, you get it. So if you say, I like to, I like, I need to start over. I like snacks, right? My favorite snacks in grouping are candy, chips, and soda. Then you're going to list more snacks. No. Ice cream. My iPad's acting weird. Ice cream. Let me do this. Ice cream. Popsicles. And gummy bears. Clearly the supreme candy. And fries, pizza, and I don't know, burgers. Ooh, that's a list, right? That's a lot of snacks. That's a heart attack waiting to happen. But before we have the heart attack, let's see how this breaks down. Okay, so you have, I like snacks. Full sentence, yay! My favorite in grouping are, so if I were to grade this, I would say my favorite snacks in grouping are, I'm always editing, are candy, chips, and soda, all one group. Then you have a semicolon, ice cream, popsicles, and gummy bears, another semicolon, fries, pizza, and burgers. So you have this grouped, this thing grouped here, this green grouped here, this thing grouped here. So you have a succession of things, right? Use the semicolon to separate groups. It's very rare you would use something like this, but it's there if you need it. And the fourth one, which is probably what you are going to be seeing probably pretty often, is that you're going to use this with conjunctive adverbs. Whew. Now, fancy words. Grammar has a lot of fancy words, which is one of the things that just kind of irritate me, but no one asked me. I was not in the room when these things were named, so I'm sorry. So conjunctive adverbs are actual verbs that maybe you've seen them discussed or talked about as transitions, like you would use it as a transition from one paragraph to another. Those words are called conjunctive adverbs. So stuff like, however, otherwise, therefore, moreover, finally, likewise, and consequently, which is also a really good word that I don't think we use as often as we probably should, right? So you would use this here. Now, I'm going to say, if it's at the beginning of a sentence, you don't need the semicolon, right? So I like, so if we just say, however, candy is bad for you, it is. But it's so good. So you say, however, candy is bad for you, you're going to put a comma right here for however, because it's one of those conjunctive adverbs, special verbs with, you know, its own little privilege. So comma, right? You put it right there. But if it's in the middle of a sentence, you're going to use a semicolon. So we say, I like candy. However, it is bad for you. Where does the semicolon go? It goes right before however, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? It kind of makes sense. So if you look at like a sentence like this, I like candy, however, it is bad for you. Obviously, however, is one of those conjunctive adverbs. But it makes sense because if you just take this part here, just this part of this sentence here, it could be its own separate sentence. So it goes back to this particular rule, goes back to rule 1, right? So let's go back up to rule 4, or go back down, I should say. So if you can say something like, the Dropbox, let me spell box correctly, to the assignment is closed. Therefore, you cannot submit your work. It's happened to us. Happened to me several times at your age. Okay, so that's thing, right? That's the sentence. The Dropbox is the subject. This Dropbox to the assignment is actually the subject, but pretty much the Dropbox is the verb, and then closed is what it is. Actually, is a helping verb for the verb closed. Closed is the big verb, is the helping verb, right? So then you have the second part of this. Therefore, you cannot submit your work. You cannot submit your work. Full sentence, right? Therefore is one of those special conjunctive adverbs, so you need to have a semicolon right before it. You're separating those two sentences. Here's the thing, again, just like with rule 1, they have to actually relate to each other. So you can't have something like the Dropbox to the assignment is closed. Gorillas ran rampant through Walmart. Those sentences don't make sense to each other. Therefore, semicolon, therefore, you cannot use a semicolon. Haha, see what I did there? So those are the rules for semicolons, and I hope that helped out. I barely get to play with my iPad and teach like a lesson, so I'm really excited about it. Hope that was fun. Hope that was insightful. Hope that helped clear things up. I'll have another video kind of going through some exercises. Bye, guys.